G'day viewers, this is the news. News about Transcend World 5, Euston, we have a Pendolino. That's so sad. Anyway, this is a news article about the upcoming West Coast Mainline route and a few other little bits and pieces. As usual, I read this to you to improve the accessibility of the information to get it out to more people who either can't or won't read the articles. One of the most requested trains comes to Transcend World 5 Deluxe Edition, layering onto the busy West Coast Mainline, along with plenty of other trains and services. In this article, we'll deep dive into the WCML South's timetable, outline all the trains you'll get, and opportunities for layering from other Transcend World add-ons. We'll also take a look at the brand new mode of gameplay in Conductor mode. And there's the Transcend World Dev Diaries, but I won't go into that because you can watch it yourself. I'll put a link in the description. Before we jump into the West Coast Mainline action, take a look at one of the first of our development diaries. Well, we're not going to. But anyway, so this is the same graphic we've seen before, in case you haven't seen this from the other videos. So it's London Euston to Milton Keynes. Excuse me. It is a complex layout within London Euston across to Milton Keynes, busy mainline commuter action on 4-track West Coast Mainline. Full overground Lioness line included. Deluxe edition players drive the Avanti West Coast Class 390 Pendolino as well. Set over 50 miles, 80 kilometres long, 28 train stations, it comes with the BR Class 350/1, Southern BR Class 377/2, the DB Cargo BR Class 66 and FKA wagons, London Underground 1972 Mark II stock. Transcend World has gone from east to west, following on from the inclusion of a stretch of the East Coast Main Line in Transcend World 4. This time we've moved over to the equally impressive, historic and intensive West Coast Main Line between London, Euston and Milton Keynes. The arterial route connecting some of Britain's major cities to London has seen plenty of action from its initial opening through to today's services, with numerous amendments and redevelopments of stations along the way, as well as an ever-changing rolling stock that use it. And we're looking at a screenshot of the Class 350 going to Tring. Its existence is formed from a number of different railway lines that were built and then merged during the mid-19th century. 100 years later, between 1950s and 1970s, the route was modernised and electrified to accommodate more advanced rolling stock, including some of the first tilting trains to operate in the UK. This technology eventually saw the introduction of the Pendolino trains in 2002. Got another screenshot of the 350 sitting in the foreground there. At its southern end, London Euston adds yet another London terminus to Transcend World. This important station has itself seen major changes throughout its history, and like other stations in the capital, sees the main line railway mix with the flow of underground and overground passengers. It plays host to over 30 million passengers a year. One of them was me a couple of months ago. Players with previous route add-ons featuring London Termini will be able to use Transcend World 5's new route hopping feature to hop between them. The routes where this is possible include South Eastern High Speed, St Pancras International, London Underground Bakerloo Line at Paddington, London Commuter at Victoria, and Great Western Express at Paddington. Bakerloo Line players will also be able to route hop between Queen's Park and Harrow and Wealdstone, which are stations shared across both routes. And I suppose with the route hopping you could just get out and walk in there too. So we get a picture of the 72 stock heading towards Harrow and Wealdstone anyway. We'll talk more extensively about route hopping, including all of the possible hopping locations across all routes in next week's USA-focused article. So we'll have to wait, won't we? Great. Beyond London, many stations within the Greater London area exist to accommodate the local and regional services heading out of Euston before heading further north to towns that were massively impacted by the arrival of the railways. On the horizon, landmarks like the BT Tower and Alexandra Road Estate will be seen. There's a Pendolino underneath the Alexandra Road Estate. The Wembley area sees many of the different types of railway lines meet, all overlooked by the iconic Wembley Stadium to the north. Nearby Wembley Central and Stonebridge Park play host to underground and overground services, the latter playable for owners of the Suffragette Line route add-on, and the Wembley Yard Stables rolling stock ranging from long freight trains to Class 390 Pendolinos. Between Cheddington and Leighton Buzzard is the inconspicuous Bridgegoo Bridge, sometimes referred to as the Mentmore Bridge, which infamously became the location of the Great Train Robbery in 1963. At the northern end of the in-game route is Milton Keynes Central, where passengers are introduced to one of Britain's post-war new towns that in real life features a rare American grid system of roads and a fresh contemporary take on British suburban lifestyle. The trains we can see a 350 and a 377, and some cows. A fleet of trains, both new to Train Sim World 5 and those seen in previous Train Sim World routes, are included in the West Coast Mainline route, with Deluxe Edition players also being able to operate the sleek and modern Avanti West Coast Pendolino, the Class 350 electric multiple unit. We see two of them here. New to Train Sim World is the Class 350 EMU, adding yet another member of the larger Desiro family of trains to the game. First introduced in 2005, these trains operate various services from Euston, either beyond the map to locations such as Northampton and Birmingham, or to stations within the confines of the route such as Dring or Milton Keynes Central. See a cab view looking out of a 350 here, yet another car alarm train. If you haven't heard of Desiro, well, let's look forward to it. Though not enabled for third rail use, these units can be adapted to work via this method. On all West Coast Mainline services, they are operated with overhead AC electric power. Guard controls are available throughout the train, enabling easy access for players utilising Train Sim World 5's Conductor mode in service mode. We'll explain more about this feature further down. It actually makes me slightly sad that they called it Conductor mode, because yes, in America that is exactly what they'd be, a conductor. In the rest of the world, they're a guard. It is a UK train after all, call it a guard. But anyway, that's life. So we're looking at one of the new features in TSW 5 where you can fixate on a digital screen. So you can use your D-pad and you can press the buttons to your heart's content. Much simpler than the way it used to be when trying to read them on funny angles. The Class 350 will also make use of the digital display enhancements. Interactive screens have become increasingly common on newer trains, being introduced into Train Sim World, making their ease of use vital to the gameplay experience. Players will be able to zoom into the display by clicking on it, located awkwardly in the top right of the cab, and interact with options such as lighting and view important information like braking and driving force. I'm sure they mean that it's in an awkward spot, not that it's awkward to click on it, because I happen to know it's not awkward to click on it, so don't worry about that. Both speed and brake pressure are measured using traditional manual gauges. Avanti West Coast Class 390 Pendolino electric multiple unit, deluxe and special edition only. I do imagine this will come out in a pack eventually just based on history, so if you love the Pendolino and you hate all the bundles, that's okay, just sit on your hands for a little while if you can handle the FOMO. If you can't handle the FOMO, deluxe edition's for you. Iconic unit for the UK, fully refurbished by Avanti West Coast, 9 and 11 car variants included to represent the whole fleet. Primary traction on the West Coast Mainline for 20 plus years, collectively travelled over 300 million miles. Running regional high-speed services throughout the West Coast Mainline is the much requested sleek tilting marvel that is the Class 390 Pendolino. Born from the innovative tilting technology of groundbreaking test trains, these modern units have long been seen powering their way out of London and down to Britain's key towns and cities in the Midlands, north and all the way to Scotland. I rode one of these out of Euston, and I had a reserved seat, and they didn't turn up with enough carriages, so it was a bit of a free-for-all. But that was okay, because I sat in first class and got away with it. Avanti West Coast, a new operator in Train Sim World, are the current custodians of these iconic trains, which are available for players of deluxe and special editions of the Train Sim World 5. Additional services will bulk out the platforms of London Euston amongst the Class 350s and give players a totally different experience passing through many of the intermediate stations at high speed. The trains will come in both 9 and 11 car formations and will also make use of the digital display enhancements to better view the screen located at the bottom left of the driver's desk. Like the Class 350, both speed and brake pressures are measured using manual gauges. You can see here a cab view out of the 350 Pendolino. It is offset slightly to the left. It's not actually a central cab, so it's got a bit of a different feel to some of the other high-speed trains. The Class 390 also comes equipped with Tilt Authorization and Speed Supervision, TAS, which is a system unique to the West Coast Mainline. This system monitors the speed of tilting trains and allows them to travel slightly faster than non-tilting trains on certain sections of track. Accompanying this are the EPS boards mentioned in the August roadmap. They show speeds that apply only to trains with tilting enabled. And we've got the Southern Class 377/2 electric multiple unit. Also included in the West Coast Mainline are the Class 377/2 units operated by Southern. Unlike their contemporaries found on the previous London commuter route add-on, these utilise overhead AC electric for power and can be switched to third rail use on other areas of the national network. You can see a 377 sitting in the foreground with a 72 Bakerloo line in the background. The Class 377/2 is included in TrainSim World 5's West Coast Mainline route. Players do not need to own the previous release content to access this train. DB Cargo Class 66 diesel locomotive. Additional freight services for PC and 9th Gen console players. So you can see a DB in freight red with a 350. For a change of traction to something bigger and noisier, the ubiquitous Class 66 is included. Though this locomotive has not changed much beyond improvements made from previous TrainSim World add-ons, it does come in a new variation of delivery, DB Cargo, adding a red flavour to the train's palette on what is otherwise dominated by green shades of electric multiple unit. The DB Cargo Class 66 is included in TrainSim World 5's West Coast Mainline route for all players on all platforms. Players do not need to own previously released content to access this train. For more information on Timetable services, see further down the article. London Underground 1972 Mark II stock. We can see one here heading for Harold and Wealdstone with the 350 and the fog behind it. An important aspect of the West Coast Main Line is its parallel running with a 7-mile stretch of the above-ground London Underground Bakerloo line, including stations at Queen's Park and Harrow and Wealdstone. The London Underground 1972 Mark II stock is included in the route, allowing players to play along a short stretch of the Bakerloo line, even if they don't own any previous content. This provides a unique opportunity to drive trains with very different styles along the same route and adds more in-game traffic to what is the busiest stretches of line in the country. These trains will have updated lighting and rain effects for their use on this route. The London Underground 1972 Mark II stock is included in TrainSim World 5's West Coast Mainline route. Players do not need to own previously released content to access this train. Timetable, layers, scenarios, and gameplay. Looking at a 350 with a 710 on the left and a 377 on the right. Note, to get the 710 you do need to own Suffragette line. With so many trains operating many different styles of services and stopping patterns, a robust timetable has been created reflecting the amount of traffic that this busy stretch of the West Coast Mainline receives. As we mentioned in our roadmap article, this has been one of the more complex areas of development, with so many trains interacting with one another from a signalling and pathing point of view. We can see a DB66 on the left with a Pendolino on the right. The types of service available to operate in service mode include limited stop Class 350 services to the likes of Crewe, Rugby, Birmingham New Street and Northampton, all ending in-game at Milton Keynes. All stop Class 350 services to Bletchley, Tring and Milton Keynes Central. Class 350 empty cars movements between Bletchley sidings and either Tring, Bletchley or London Euston, as well as between Camden sidings and London Euston. Class 37/2 services ply between Watford Junction and Wembley Central. London Underground Bakerloo line services between Harrow and Wealdstone and Queen's Park, as well as some empty cars moves at Stonebridge Park. Class 66 freight services, these arrive from off the map using the Williston relief lines and are then playable until they reach Milton Keynes. These are all formed of intermodal trains. Note that freight services will not be available for players of 8th generation consoles, PlayStation 4 and Xbone. The Class 66 will still be available to spawn and operate using free roam timetable mode. You can see an image here with a 710 and a Bakerloo train. Note that the 710, you need the layers from Suffragette line. Additional service layers include Avanti West Coast Class 390 Pendolino services for deluxe and special edition players to Glasgow Central, Manchester Piccadilly, Liverpool's Lime Street, Wolverhampton and Birmingham New Street, all ending in game at Milton Keynes. Class 390 empty cars movements between Wembley sidings and London Euston. Class 710 London Overground services for players that own the Suffragette Line add-on along the entire length of the Lioness Line from London Euston to Watford Junction. Class 710 empty cars movements between Willesden Yard and London Euston Watford Junction. Pendolino services that do not stop at Milton Keynes will be included in the timetable as AI services. AI layers for Cathcart Circle Line route add-on. Not sure why we're mentioning Cathcart Circle here, but anyway. Oh, this is why. Train Sim World 5 players that own the recently remastered Cathcart Circle Line and the Class 380 EMU add-ons, which contains its new timetable, will see layered in Class 350 EMUs at Glasgow Central to represent a time that these trains were leased for use there. Well, there you go. The Avanti West Coast Class 390 Pendolino will also appear for players that own Deluxe or Special Edition or the Loco add-on that will release on launch day. These Cathcart Circle Line layers for the Class 380 timetable are all AI services. New feature, Conductor mode, in brackets, Guard mode. Basically, in this mode, you open and close doors and dispatch the train, you move bags and you check tickets. So we've seen something like this in a couple of scenarios in previous versions of the game, and it was quite popular, so now it's a mode on certain trains on certain routes, and you get to go through it and have a bit of fun with it. It won't appear on everything because it does take work on the train and the tickets and on the route itself to make it work. So it'll be on some things only. New to Train Sim World 5 is the full Conductor mode feature, which for the benefit of British players of British routes, we may occasionally refer to as Guard mode. Well, probably pretty much everywhere else in the world calls them Guards, or Guards as we call them on our railway, because we're annoying. This brand new way to play in timetable service mode has stemmed from feedback on our Guard/Conductor scenarios introduced into the previous Glossop Line and LIRR commuter route add-ons, which became some of the most played scenarios ever in Train Sim World. So you can see checking someone's ticket here, and you decide whether it's valid or not, and tell them to get off your train if it's not. From the main menu, players will be allowed to select Guard as a playable mode, whereby the train is driven by the AI and the tasks required relate to those representative of a member of the train crew across selected trains on the route. Players will be able to stand in the Conductor/Guard position by any of the doors with a Guards panel and operate the controls to open and close the doors, notify the driver or /engineer that all is clear and well as check passengers' tickets and clear the aisles of intrusive baggage. On West Coast Mainline, this includes using Guard's buzzer on the Class 350 to notify the driver when ready to depart. Similar tasks are in place for Conductor mode on both San Bernardino Line and Frankfurt Fulda. On San Bernardino Line, notifying the engineer comes in the form of blowing a whistle, which is done by pressing the horn key or button. In West Coast Mainline, Guard mode is available on the Class 350. Coaches on San Bernardino Line will have Conductor mode available, as will the BR114 plus Dosto sets in Frankfurt Fulda. We're exploring opportunities for implementation on other routes, including those announced for future releases, and will provide further information in a future update. Scenarios and gameplay. There will be a total of 8 scenarios available to play on West Coast Mainline. 5 of these involve the Class 350, with 3 available for players with the Avanti West Coast Class 390 Pendolino add-on, including both deluxe and special editions of Train Sim World 5. And we can see here a Class 350, 2 Class 350s in fact. The Class 350 scenarios are Service Saviour, where you'll be required to step in to drive the 350 in the absence of a driver. Football Frenzy, involving the movement of passengers from the Wembley area. Back in Service, requiring the coupling procedure to another Class 350 unit. And Heavy Traffic and Empty Cars Service. Carriage Collector, a service involving movement in a depot. You can see a 390 tooling along in the snow here. The Class 390 Pendolino scenarios are Refreshing Refurb and Empty Cars Service, Watford Bypass, which requires your service to be diverted along the slow lines, Pendolino, which involves a service with the TAS disabled, There will be a series of collectibles to go and hunt down across the route, including defibrillators and posters. On top of that, there are some delivery bots that seem to have lost their way. These can sometimes be seen roaming the streets of Milton Keynes in real life, but may have snuck onto station platforms in Train World for players to find. Players might also find some Dovetail Football Club football scarves to pick up that have been discarded by Wembley goers. Mastery challenges require you to perform certain tasks on a route, like completing certain scenarios or travelling a certain number of miles in a specific locomotive. Tier 1 challenges unlock decals for use in Livery Designer, and Tier 2 challenges unlock toggleable scenery tiles. The key art for West Coast Mainline, as shown earlier in the article featuring the Class 377 and 350, has some bovine rail fans observing the trains as they move along the tracks. I'd complain about moo jokes, but I make them all the time. The unlockable Tier 2 mastery tile for this route also features these friendly field dwellers at Milton Keynes, but not in the form that you might expect. There will be a live stream, which I think might be... it's either tomorrow or the day after. It's probably the day after. But anyway, it's Thursday night in the UK, and I think it's about 6:15 in the morning for the Aussies, which is probably on Friday morning. So, there will be a preview. So if you can't wait to see it in action, we're giving the first look at the 50 miles from London Euston Milton Keynes, showing off the 350, 377/2, and showcasing the Avanti West Coast Class 390 Pendolino. Also be giving a tour of the new core features as we go, so don't miss out and set a notification for the stream. I will put a link in for that one as well. There you go. So it's available now for pre-order, early access if you buy the Deluxe or Special editions, starts on the 12th. Otherwise you get it on the 17th if you buy the Standard edition. You can also pick up the free starter pack, so if you're running an older version of Train Sim World, or you'd like to give Train Sim World a try and you've never had it, and you'd like to give it a crack at Train Sim World 5, it will be free. You get the training centre. You must claim it between September the 17th and October the 17th. If you have previous versions on the same platform that you're claiming it on, your DLC and progress and everything will come over, and you can run it all in Train Sim World 5 and take advantage of some of the newer updated stuff. So there you go. That is the news about the new route, Euston to Milton Keynes, West Coast Main Line. Have a look at the previous stream and we'll see what you think shortly. Alrighty, see you later.
We played a game.